The topic of this presentation today is more about influencers. Really enjoyed some of the earlier presentations and appreciate that we're doing this topic and that Casual Connect has this trek these days. In 20 minutes, 25 minutes time, I'm not going to spend a great deal of that on the why of influencers. I hope that word of mouth marketing and influencer marketing is well established, and we're years past having to justify that with all of the Nielsen studies that have come out about the power of the influence of these groups. All right, as we learn how to advance. There's been a lot of recent headlines. These are all 2016 headlines, many of them capturing the opportunity of influencers, but increasingly I'm seeing headlines about the cost of also being in this space. So what I wanted to do in this time with you is talk a little bit about what Blizzard's been doing as we're trying to greater support the community that's supporting us. And a few of the things I'm going to be bringing up start off sounding very simple. But I think if any of you are also trying to navigate in this space across a large org or multiple products, and also with global teams, you realize although it starts off simple, there is a lot of complexity and nuance that we've been uncovering. So I hope I can speak well to that today. And before we go a lot further, it's really important, and this was a great thing at Blizzard, when we agreed upon our vocabulary. So I'm using influencers in air quotes, and I almost cringe having to use that as the title of this presentation because we try not to use that term a lot within Blizzard. It dehumanizes these folks for some extent. And as we got a little bit more granular in the types of influencers and also stages of their life cycle, it really added some breakthrough in the role clarity between community, PR, esports, marketing, and others. So I'm going to go through these quickly. Some I hope are very familiar to you, but of course you start with the content creators. And this is going to be your streamers, YouTubers, cosplayers, your mod creators, bloggers. Blogging is still very popular and influential in Korea, and so forth. And then you have your talent, which might be separate from this. That could be your esports players, your casters, hosts, and so on. And then we have what we like to call community leaders or community organizers. So certainly our Reddit moderators, and that's one of our favorite Overwatch Reddit mods. In addition to that, we have collegiate club organizers, so the leaders there, we like to think and support those groups. If you have those top guilds or very big guilds in WoW, working with them. Also, different community groups might organize viewing parties, launch parties, so just knowing who they are, being able to identify them and working with them, supporting them is definitely part of what we're trying to do. And a final group I have here is just what we'd call a franchise advocate. And full disclosure, this is actually one of the employees, Alex, on our team, but it was such a great picture. So this is someone that could be a forum MVP, they're a high consumer, they're very networked, and they might not necessarily fall in one of these other categories. And we'd really like to advocate for strategies that cover all four of these types. In addition, another way to dissect this is the stage of the life cycle, and particularly if we're talking about creators here. So we like this 3-tier system right now, but as you get more sophisticated within your org, you might find the need for more tiers. But if we start off with promising, this is the up-and-coming group, maybe the yet-to-be-discovered group, and you'll hear them say things like, oh my God, look, I just made $3 streaming video games. They are fueled by a lot of optimism. They're still learning their talent. They're probably trying out a lot of different content types and channels. And a big jump from promising is then to established. And now this group, the established group, is potentially streaming, creating VODs, 60 to 80 hours a week. So this is a big jump. And what's going on in their mindset and their psychology is a big jump as well. It's a much more fragile time for them. They're more nervous. You'll hear them say things like, well, I can't come meet with you. I can't afford to take a day off. Today might be the day some of my subs need to re-up. They could be investing days and hours in a content piece only to be trumped by an even bigger streamer or VOD creator launching something minutes ahead of them. So there's a sense of just nervousness here, and also isolation we've heard. So you could see that what you're going to do and approach as a brand, there's a big difference here between these two groups. And likewise, equally a big jump once you get to this mainstream or maybe epic level content creator. And now you're really dealing with someone who has a business, and you're probably interfacing more with their business people They're more committed to sustainability and scalability at that point. So we use these labels and the 4 before to have more meaningful conversations throughout Blizzard. So how should brands be navigating in this space? First and foremost, and some of you again are going to realize this is very simple, but it's about knowing the regulations. And even if you think you know the regulations, I keep being surprised by more headlines that came out. I'm sure you guys have seen some recent ones with Warner Brothers. That was a bit surprising, hearing the details there. So whether it's the FTC, the ESRB, the Bureau of Consumer Protection, if you're also marketing in Europe and in Asia, kind of understanding their consumer protection boards, this is a full-time evergreen activity, is staying up with the latest. Again, for dealing with the influencer space, the biggest part, of course, is about disclosure. I hope you all know that, and I also hope that you and your teams are pretty quick to be able to recite the current important components of this space. This is a quick picture of Total Biscuit. He's got a video that I linked to in my very final slide that goes into detail about what creators should be thinking about for disclosure. And we can't have enough of this. It's very important that the disclosures the creators are making are clear and conspicuous. They're looking at proximity and prominence. These are all really important, and you can't minimize the need for this if you're a brand. In fact, if this needs to be in your contract, if you're actually contracting with content creators, and if it is, and the content creator does not follow that, it's basically a rule where they can have one violation, but if they have a repeated violation where they don't follow through, you need to end your relationship with them. That's per policy. It's pretty strict there. Some things that have also been in flux. I went to VidCon and got to hear from an FTC director there, and I was a little surprised to hear, but things are being very debated, like the term sponsored by. That's something that a lot of us have used to show that there's an association. Well, that's kind of up in the air again. They think that might be slightly misleading. And fair use is something else. So it really is important to stay current and working with your legal teams, but then how many people in your org, the various teams that touch these groups, agencies you might also work with, you have to take this very seriously. Also, just to keep in mind that wherever your country of origin is for your business, so again, if Blizzard is a US-based company, but if we're marketing in other, Europe and Asia, the US regulations still apply there as well. Now, I also like to talk about setting strategy. And a lot of people will nod and say, yeah, we've set a strategy, but then often I don't quite see the fruits of that. So let me talk through what I mean. Things you might be considering is, first of all, the life cycle stage of your product. Also your resources. That could be your variable marketing spend versus your headcount. What channels you think are key for new acquisition or retention, and also different player segments. And just as a reminder, thinking about these 4 different influencer types, here are 4 strategies that you might think through. I'm sure there's many, but let's just for talking points. One might be that you're prioritizing reach. You're probably going to be looking at just creators and talent, and this is probably a great strategy when you are announcing a new product, announcing a game, and maybe also around the launch of a game. This is probably the most expensive strategy. Second, we have what I like to call the long tail, and Overwatch is a pretty good example of this. So for Blizzard, Overwatch was the first time we've ever gotten into the FPS genre. So we were not familiar with these content creators or the pro players. And early in development, we were reaching out to some of these folks, having them come in, meet with the devs, do early play tests, give us feedback, ask questions. And that's been really wonderful. Quite a few of those individuals are creating content for us now. But also, as soon as we were pumping out some of our videos and cinematics, some of the community also started to form, and we saw some real up-and-comers. And I love the story of a Tactical Koala. He came out with a video that was just loving on counting down days of beta. And the dev team saw it, the community team saw it. We felt like he was really aligned with our values. Didn't have very many views, doesn't have very many subscribers, but he also was invited to come to meet with those other established guys. And now he's making nearly daily content for us, and we love that guy. So that would be the strategy of the long tail. You could go after what I call a promising strategy, and this could be that those middle tiers and up and coming, the promising content creators. This is a strategy that we're trying for Heroes of the Storm right now. That's a game that's a team brawler. Its competitors are in the MOBA genre, and we're finding it's a very populated space, a lot of entrenched competitors. So what we've been doing is doubling down on the community that's been with us since technical alpha and really trying to support them, and I have some examples of that coming up. And the last strategy here is absolutely my favorite, but it's a diverse strategy where you're looking at the promising, you're looking at the mainstream, and you're looking at all those types, creators through advocates. This is something that we're trying with our World of Warcraft community. It's very established, very highly engaged, been around for a long time, and we're doing our best there. Okay, now, when I think about the type of activities that we're doing, it really breaks into these three buckets, and I'll explain and give some examples of each of these. So relationship investment. I won't go through all of these bullet points here, but this is that ongoing touch points and responsiveness that you have with these individuals. These are all key considerations, sample goals. And something we've been doing increasingly more of is hosting a group of these folks to our campus. It could also be an off-site, but when we do that, we're prioritizing relationship building with those folks. Sometimes we'll put them under NDA or embargo and be talking to them about unreleased content, gathering feedback, and so on. And also we've been starting to survey them. And here's some results from one of our hosting events that we had. No big surprise, but the highest popularity is looking at new content. But actually there was a little bit of granularity because not all content is the same. And if it's something like a new hero coming out that we're all very excited about, sometimes the content creators aren't as excited. They're looking for something that's game-changing, system-changing. So there's even some nuance on each of these. They certainly enjoy just the meeting with the developers, having breakout sessions where they get to do deep dives and voice questions on various topics. And then, the fourth I wanted to call out too, meeting other influencers has been a big win from these hosting. They don't always have that opportunity. So sometimes they're building connections and then coming up with ideas of things they want to do collaboratively and so on. Now, the second bucket is about collaborations. So this could be paid or unpaid, earned or paid. And I wanted to show you quickly, to me, the time where it's most important to be considering paid. I'm not sure if you could see that font looks pretty small to me, but you're probably looking for paid right around that announcement time. This is a community lifecycle framework I really like to use. It's adapted from Buzzing Communities, which is a book I'd highly recommend if you're in the community development business. But once you have access to the game, you're going to start getting those earned content creators and talent and other members. And so that's been a lot of our focus is really keying in there. Part of this life cycle is also, for some games that are fortunate enough to get to community maturity, they'll even break off into mitosis. So now you have specialized groups. And so that should also, if you're seeing that happen with your product, you also want to be looking for content creators and leaders that are also specialized. Okay, so I wanted to show you, again, because I'm working with the community development department, a lot of our examples are totally unpaid things that we've done just to be better supporting this community, supporting us. So I have some examples. Ann Munition is a great streamer we love. She's a competitive Overwatch player, and she shared these stats with us. We hosted one of her streams in our launcher, and I realize not all developers or products have their own game launcher, but she had tremendous growth in almost every metric possible, of course, when she was featured in our launcher. I also saw this recently with Dan Bull. So this was a video that he published to YouTube, and we saw it, we loved it, so we shared it on Twitter and also on Facebook. And as you can see from just our sharing, he suddenly had over 1.15 million views the moment that I took that screenshot, where the average video views of his channel are around 225. So you could see here that we have the ability to really shine a spotlight on them. We're doing this for free. We think that their success is our success. Another example, when Hearthstone, any Hearthstone players? We haven't talked about. All right, cool. That's a lot of folks. So we recently launched Old Gods, Whispers of the Old Gods. And as part of that rollout strategy, we had new cards we wanted to introduce to the community. So these, the image that you're seeing over here is all the different content creators and talent in the global Hearthstone ecosystem that we provided them one of those new cards to be able to help us amplify and drive some buzz and excitement. And this worked extremely well. It was definitely no simple thing to orchestrate, but a lot of these guys and gals came out with videos or streams and were really humorous and had a great time. The tweet I have there, I'm not sure you can read it, but you can't necessarily control this, and we tried not to over-legislate this. We wanted the creators to be as authentic as they want. Well, not all Hearthstone cards are created equal, or so it feels. And so one of our guys just basically made a tweet saying, "I don't even know how much this card will get played," and that was the reveal. So it's just a humorous reminder that you can't necessarily control everything in this space, but that cumulatively we really liked how this campaign came off. And the third area is actually doing programs. So maybe layering on a YouTube program that might have some of the elements listed here, or a Twitch program, a cosplayer program, a guild leader program, and so forth. Something that we're doing right now that's relatively lightweight. This is also from Heroes of the Storm, as I was talking about that example of really dedicating and focusing on our promising group. What this is here is simply a coordination of various streamers. When they came together at one of our events that we hosted, they loved this idea of basically, instead of just on their own scheduling time to be streaming, we've coordinated it for them. So now they're broadcasting to their own channel, and then we're also hosting it on our own. So it's being dual broadcasted. And this way we have assets like this from our own channels. We're driving attention to them as we're hosting them, and we're in an evaluation period so far, but I'll tell you that the streamers themselves are very excited about this, and I hope that we're finding it's driving a lot more traffic to us, and also trying to assess what's the actual operational implications on our side of coordinating all of this. Another thing I'll try to go through quickly, but when you have a lot of different parts of the org touching these individuals, I feel strongly that you need a values framework or guiding principles. So I wanted to show you, it's kind of a work in progress, but where Blizzard's at with developing guiding principles. And for me, the amount that I have right now, each of these have come from a different scenario or situation where I felt like there was a coaching point of trying to just align everyone. And I hope with a lot of nuance and complexity of working with these individuals, that if you have guiding principles you all agree with, you'll make similar decisions that everyone feels good about. So I like to start with the relationship as a foundation, and that's a big value for us at Blizzard. We're not thinking about this talent or these creators as hired guns that we use exclusively for milestones. We actually really want to get to know these folks, and we think there's mutual benefit there. We understand them more, they understand us more. We also think authenticity is paramount, and so we are very particular with who we would like to work with. We don't want to bring in someone that wouldn't be relevant or doesn't resonate with our current audiences. And likewise, there's a really funny YouTube video, I think by Doodle Oddle on YouTube. I linked to it in the final slide here, but she was also ranting about brands. One thing to know, that if you're in the content creator space and working with them, it is not like working with a vendor or an agency or an internal team. What they put into the product, their authenticity is really important. So you can't have tons of edits and iterations and control over what they're doing. That's not why you hire these folks. I also like to say, really know them. We've found some value by even understanding their stance on different topics. If we want to have internal, under NDA conversations and gathering feedback, it's good to know like a diversity of opinions. So this is something that we also really strive for. As a mindset, we're investing in their success. I hope you've been hearing that throughout this presentation, but it's really about, as we're seeing them grow, our goals are about seeing their channels grow, their content getting greater exposure. Being accessible, that's important. This is not a 9 to 6 or 9 to 7 job working with these individuals. It's often nights and weekends because that's when they are available. And finally, I also like to remind folks that you need to be humble. Even though you're the brand or the publisher and perhaps you have budget, a lot of these folks, if they are investing in your product, are taking some personal risk to do so, and to show gratitude and have that sense of humility goes a long way. There's a few other considerations. Publisher level framework. I'm not sure how many of you have multiple games, but we will always support a content creator if they'd like to switch to another game within Blizzard. We think it's success if they stay within our Blizzard ecosystem. Crisis management is another consideration. It's different than the average communications or PR crisis management that pops up, because now you also have the relationship with that individual to potentially repair. And also the life cycle. When do you stop supporting these folks? If you're only really paying attention to them when they're hot, we'd prefer to keep the relationship going as long as they're interested in that. So it could be even as part of their life cycle is coming to a decline. So to summarize, these are just key points that we've talked about, and there's again research and studies out there about every $1 invested in influencers can bring back $2 to $20 worth of value. So we really think the opportunity here is great, but not just from the business sense. It's also, to me, supporting the community that is supporting you is just the right thing to do. But again, there's also needs to be balanced with a lot of the responsibilities that come. Knowing regulations, really being intentional about your strategy, having internal guiding principles, and so forth. So I'll end on these thoughts. I like to think of the rise of influencers, age of the consumer, and the relationship economy as a perfect storm, if you will. With influencers, it's an old concept, but the pool has gotten a lot bigger, and it's a lot more sophisticated these days with different channel and content types. Then it's the age of the consumer. There's been this fundamental shift in marketing products and publishing. And then the relationship economy. It's a new currency. It has to do with relationships. So these three powerful waves are coming. And you could say, are you caught in the storm? Are you crashing on the rocks? Or are you riding that momentum to the benefit of your brand, but also your players? So thank you. I hope this was helpful. Couple minutes for questions. Yeah.
What are some of the roadblocks that you've had reaching out to influencers, if you've had any? Have you had anyone refuse to actually work with you guys or anything like that?
Yes, absolutely. And that's where I like the relationship being the foundation. We have had people say they didn't want to for their own ability to be really objective and authentic, and we completely respect that. So yeah, that's not that uncommon.
Great presentation. I love that cheers love at the end. Just wondering, what is the breakdown of influencers that you work with between organic and paid, or earned versus paid, percentage-wise?
For us right now, the community development department is the primary department driving this, so it's largely slanted towards organic and earned right now. It might vary by game. And again, it does flex based on the life cycle, but for some of our games right now, it's 100% organic. For something that's more, with Overwatch, we've had obviously some big milestones. The game launched, and we have a game launch also coming up for WoW. So we might see, some collaborations come up with money paid. But I'd say on any given day, the vast majority don't have a percentage, but it's the gross majority is just earned.
So coming out of the traditional community side, where groups of players are coming together very much like the guilds, how do you see the traditional communities being affected by this kind of new paradigm with Twitch and streaming and things like that?
It was basically asking a lot of, especially if you think about WoW, some of those traditional communities, how are they impacted by the emergence of new channels like Twitch and YouTube? And that is also why I really advocate for the diverse strategy, because we do see that sometimes. You'll see our very active and engaged WoW forum community saying, hey, how come you only did that activity on Twitter? And so you really do have to think about your entire ecosystem. And if you're only dealing with content creators, I fear that that will come across as self-serving too much. So that's why I really do like the more diverse, where you're paying attention to all those groups if you have the manpower to do it. Any more questions? Thank you guys. Thanks very much.